Okay, thank you. Welcome to the Williston Development and Review.
Recording in progress.
Excuse me. We're starting the meeting, thank you. Welcome to the Williston Development and Review Board. Tonight is April 8th, 2025. My name is Pete Kelly. I am unpopular with the members of the audience at this point, and I'm also chair of the DRB. Please silence your phones and devices. Zoom attendees, please stay muted unless it's your turn to speak. For Zoom technical questions, contact planning staff through Zoom chat. I'll begin by taking a roll call of DRB members in attendance this evening. Nate Andrews is not present. Paul Christensen?
Present.
Lisa Braden-Harder?
Present.
Scott Riley?
Here.
David Turner?
Here.
And the chair is present. We have 5 in attendance, so we do have a quorum. The following items are on the agenda for tonight. We're going to start with a public forum. That's an opportunity for people to address the DRB on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Then we're going to go into the public hearing. We've got 4 items on the public hearing agenda. Then we'll go into communication, final plans, other business, approve the meeting minutes, and adjourn the meeting. The Development and Review Board, DRB, follows rules of procedure and conducts quasi-judicial proceedings, aka public hearings like court, pursuant to Williston Unified Development Bylaw, WDB, Chapter 6, in Appendix A. The powers of the DRB are established in and limited by this bylaw as well as state statute and expounded upon in the staff reports for each public hearing application. As volunteer public officials, we are held to the standards of the Williston Volunteer Policy and the Williston Conflict of Interest Ordinance. For any public hearing tonight, this is a question for the DRB members. Question number 1. Does any member wish to be excused on an account of a conflict of interest? Hearing none. Second question. Does any member wish to report an ex parte contact? Negative on that as well. Okay, so we'll segue right into the public forum. This is an opportunity for members of the audience or people participating by Zoom to address the board on items not on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone who would like to address the board?
No, they all got yelled at.
Felt like a school teacher.
I'll just add that we're very happy to have David Maroney, our new conservation planner, sitting in on this evening's meeting.
Yeah, welcome, Dave. Okay, now we're going to a public hearing. First up is DP 24-12.1. That's Duane, Merrill and Company and Brick Liners Custom Masonry and Chimney Services. We are going to open and immediately continue that application to May 13th, 2025. Next up on the agenda is DP 25-06. Scott and Summer Batdorf for a 2-lot subdivision of a 7.33 acre parcel at 1876 Mountain View Road. Would the applicant come forward, please? Hey, Jacques, would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Jacques LaRose. I work for Civil Engineering Associates. Address is 10 Mansfield View Lane, South Burlington.
Thank you. Staff goes next.
Thank you, Pete. This is a request for a discretionary permit for a 2-lot subdivision of an existing parcel totaling 7.33 acres. The proposal is to create Lot 1, 2.28 acres with the existing dwelling located at 1876 Mountain View Road, and create a second lot, proposed Lot 2, which will be 5.05 acres, and it will have a proposed half-acre building envelope. This property is located in the residential zoning district, where it was not subject to design review, but did have Conservation Commission review. Staff recommendation is to take testimony and close the hearing and approve this application with findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval as drafted. Project history. This project went through pre-application review on February 11th. And the prior proposal for a boundary line adjustment, that was what was amended into a pre-application hearing when we figured out some information about the lot's history. The Conservation Commission commented on this application. Their comments are included. Public Works and Fire also commented on this application. The Public Works Department comments are included as a condition of approval. No comment letters were received at the time of mailout, April 3rd, nor did we receive any letters or emails up until this evening. Staff would like to note that there were a set of bylaw amendments that were approved by the Select Board last week on April 1st, and these amendments will go into full effect on April 22nd. Some of these amendments may apply to this property and how it would be used or developed in the future. For example, a new or existing driveway may serve up to 9 dwelling units, where previously it was 5 dwelling units. The construction of multi-unit dwellings with 4 or fewer units can be approved administratively on any existing or proposed lot. So for example, in the future, if this lot's sold, that property owner could build a single-family home, duplex, triplex, up to a 4-plex. And for density calculations, acreage is based upon the total land area of the platted boundaries. Watersheds and buffers are not excluded out of that calculation. Pre-application recommendations, these have all been addressed in the applicant's plan set, or were not applicable to this application. In terms of the standards of the residential zoning district, compliance as proposed, both with setbacks, building height for the structures will be confirmed at administrative permit. It complies with the minimum lot frontage of 40 feet. They're proposing 70 feet. Open space also complies as proposed. A quantitative minimum is not required, nor a separate lot. That's not required. They are showing a building envelope for the home, and we'll discuss that further in chapters 27 and 29. Affordable homes and growth management. So up to 4 dwellings can proceed from pre-application to discretionary permit review. Access complies as proposed. So a new driveway and curb cut is proposed onto Mountain View Road to serve Lot 2. It is separated a little bit from that property line between Batdorf and Glazer to provide separation distance between the future Glazer Court on the abutting property and this new driveway. A traffic study was not required at pre-application, and connectivity. The building envelope and septic system do not conflict with the official map. The official map lays out where future connections for streets are shown. On-site infrastructure complies as proposed. The property will be served by municipal water. The Public Works Department did have some comments for how water service should be addressed at final plans. And it will also be served by on-site septic. Due to its location, it's not feasible for this property to connect to sewer lines within the sewer service area. A recreation path easement is required along the property's frontage on Mountain View Road, and that 30-foot easement is shown on the plans. What follows is the density chapter. So we provide density calculations based on the existing bylaw as well as the pending bylaw that would be in effect on April 22nd. Currently 2 dwelling units are proposed, the existing and the new home, where the density could allow in the future could allow up to 36 at the base density or 51 units with the affordable housing bonus.
Emily, did anybody ever run the calculation on what it could be with the new just passed regs?
Yep, so the new regs for 7.33 acres times 5 dwellings, that's 36 units at the base density. At 7 dwellings per acre for the affordable bonus, that's 51 dwellings.
So it would help if I read below it, right?
All good. Landscaping complies as proposed. No new plantings are required. The existing and proposed dwellings meet the 10-foot side and 15-foot rear setbacks. And Lot 2 open space provides ample buffers, including the existing vegetation, mainly to the south and west of the property. Street trees complies as proposed. Street trees are not required along Mountain View Road to preserve the scenic vista. Conservation areas, the only applicable one is significant wildlife habitat areas, where it's mapped in travel corridor and core habitat. Because the total area of disturbance for the home site driveway and septic system is less than a half acre, a habitat disturbance assessment was not required. However, the Conservation Commission did make two mitigating recommendations: that the building envelope be reduced in size and shifted north to avoid some of these conflicts, and the applicant did address those comments in the plan set. Watershed health complies as proposed. A erosion control plan was required because the driveway crosses the wetland and wetland buffer. It complies as proposed. And a wetlands delineation was provided, and the Conservation Commission recommended, and the applicant is doing, cedar posts where the driveway crosses the wetland as well as along the wetland buffer on the existing home site's backyard. So this application complies with those Conservation Commission recommendations. Impact fees, those are assessed at the time a new dwelling is permitted administratively. What follows are findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval, noting that for the Conservation Commission, they did not have any specific comments. They recommended that everything complies as proposed. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Emily. Jacques, what comments do you have to supplement? Hey, good evening. If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sorry, I'm straight from work a little late. Scott Batdorf, 1876 Mountain View Road.
Welcome, Scott. So, to Scott and Jacques, do you have anything to supplement staff's report?
The only comment we had on the conditions was condition 8, reference sewer allocation, which I think probably intended to say water allocation. In that same thought, Public Works has provided us a memo that says the engineer should verify water pressure on Mountain View Road, and that's primarily because Bruce had concerns with the pressure on that particular line. We don't know the results of that, of what the pressure is at this point in time, because of the time of year. Actually, Bruce didn't want to do any testing prior to spring. So what could happen is that there's not adequate pressure on Mountain View Road. So we would appreciate it if the DRB is able to provide, maybe modify that condition, so we provide adequate water in accordance with the state rules. So perhaps that means municipal water if we have pressure, or a drilled well if we do not have pressure. That way this development can be served water.
Okay, so I would love to hear from Public Works.
Yeah, so
So Public
Christine's
Works
here.
is right behind you.
Oh,
And, but Christine, if you would, just for the record, state your name and address, please.
I believe they just did a hydrant test.
Oh, that's good.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Christine Doherty, Assistant Director of Public Works. Yes, so there is some concerns about making sure that there's adequate pressures to serve this property. One of the concerns is the length of the line going from Mountain View back to the property. And there is the pressure. We actually had some concerns about pressures serving Glacier property already. There were some pressure tests done out there, but pressures are pretty, they're on the borderline there, depending on elevations and things like that. Given the length of line that's out there, we do want to make sure that they run the analysis on that. We will allow them to do a pressure test. They're allowed to do that starting April 15th, so 7 days from now. And we do have some pressure tests that they can do that we recently ran on hydrants. So if they want those numbers, they can ask for those. We'd be happy to give them to them. But it is up to the engineers for them to take that data and do the calculations and certify that it will meet the state minimum pressures and given the length of line to serve the property.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it. So Jacques, what are you suggesting, be, item number 8, how are you suggesting that be amended?
Well, I think it should reference water rather than
Yes.
sewer. I
Yes.
covered that. That the I don't have an issue with the board saying we need to provide adequate water. I think that's very straightforward. We need to have water for the home. At the time of the submittal, and we did not know if we have pressure, and it sounds like maybe, there was very recently been pressure tests done on the hydrant, so I don't know what those numbers are, clearly, sitting here today. I just found out they were done. So what I would like to see is that the development provides adequate water in accordance with the state water supply rule, or wastewater and water supply rule. I think that's what I would recommend or like to see for the applicant.
That you would like to see that in as a condition of approval?
That's right, that the
Is that what you're
development
saying?
provides adequate water in accordance with the state rule.
I think that's.
Yeah, we can modify condition number 8 to make that more explicitly clear. And also, worst case scenario, if the water line doesn't work out, our bylaw is permissive of wells. So we can make it clear enough, if it can be town water line, great. If not, meet the state rules for a well.
Yeah, that's all the intent we're looking for.
Okay.
I would
We're on the same
argue,
page.
I would argue that all you simply do in here is quote what Emily just said and say, town bylaw allows the drilling of a well. Don't change anything else. Other than changing sewer to water. Without a legal opinion. You don't want to commit the town to something that they're not contemplating already with public works rules that are in existence already.
I'm on board with what you're saying. The application process puts it incumbent on the applicant to meet current standards. And our bylaws allow for a well if you can't get the adequate pressure through the municipal water system. So I think you're covered.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure we're not perhaps restricted by that condition.
It's
If
all,
there's a-
it's all in the bylaws, and what we
Okay.
tend to do, and Scott, thank you for weighing in on this. What we tend to do is not in an attempt to clarify, we actually can add confusion, and that's the reason why we just let if the bylaws are explicit on a topic, we stay silent on, as a DRB for that, so we don't have any conflicting language.
Great.
Are you okay with that, Emily?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you're covered. I hear what you're saying, and,
It's great.
and I'm comfortable with just saying, let's just change from sewer to water, and the bylaws protect you.
Understood.
Or the bylaw, I'm not sure, or the bylaw allows you to drill a well.
Without having to come back to see you again.
Yes.
Correct, yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
Which is right. Thank you.
That was our only comment, I believe.
Okay.
Unless Scott had something.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we worked through that. DRB members, questions? Any? Scott?
Just an ongoing statement, which I'm gonna sound like a broken record. Scott, you've got a nice piece of property. You're putting 2 houses on it. You're actually allowed to put 51 units on it. And so this is a statement. This is not a suggestion. This is more of a statement for the record. We are in a housing crisis. And we have a nice piece of land that will take a lot of units, and it's getting 2 instead of 51. So it's not a commentary on your project. It is a commentary on what the town allows, people to do with their land. It's America. We're allowed to do what we want with our land. But once that's done, it becomes a lot harder to come back and start expanding it again. So, anyways, that's the statement. You do not have to respond. And I'm not looking for a response.
Yeah. I do
could
have,
respond.
I do have a comment, we understand the intent of the, so we have, on this property, it isn't just a
That
open.
was not that is me
No,
making a
no.
statement for the record, nothing
Yeah,
more.
Understood. I mean, we have wetlands, we have
I understand.
wildlife areas, so we, we're trying to do something that fits this.
Like I said, I fully understand what you're doing.
Comment?
No comment was requested.
It's up to you. You don't need to say a word.
Yeah. We can move on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. That was probably the right choice. Okay, so I'll open it up to the floor. Members of the audience who would like to weigh in on this, it's your opportunity. Any members of the audience have any comments? Okay. Any last, Scott or Jacques, any last thoughts? DRP members, anything before I close? Okay. Okay, it is 7:20. We're gonna close DP 25-06. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, is DP 25-08, Williston Wood Homeowners Association, care of Watershed Consulting. This is for stormwater treatment. Who is here for representing the applicant? Good evening.
Good evening. Hi there. I'm Gary Novak. I'm the president of Williston Woods Homeowners Association. Our engineer is a little late. He's supposed to come, and he's having a little difficulty, but I can hopefully answer most of the board's questions.
Okay, great. And your address for the record, please?
Yes, I'm Gary T. Novak. I am the president of Williston Woods Homeowners Association. My address is 822 Middlewood Road, Williston, Vermont, 05495.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gary. Staff goes next.
Yeah, so the Williston Woods Homeowners Association requests discretionary permit review of a stormwater treatment improvements with .43 acres of site work on a common land parcel surrounding Williston Woods Road in the agricultural rural zoning district, ARGD. The property is currently developed with 34 single household dwellings. Staff is recommending the DRB take testimony and close the hearing, deliberate tonight, and approve the project as proposed with recommended findings of fact and conditions of approval. This is the first time the DRB is reviewing the proposed project. You reviewed a very similar project a few weeks ago that was the Williston Woods Cooperative Housing Corporation stormwater improvements. This is the Williston Woods Homeowners Association, which is the other subdivision, the Phase 1 of original Williston Woods. And they are also would like to do state mandated stormwater improvements. So no advisory boards reviewed or commented on this project. Departments, Public Works, Fire, and Police were invited to review and comment, but we received no comments for the proposed project. And no comment letters from the public were received at the time of mail out, April 3rd, 2025. The proposed project complies as proposed with respect to dimensional standards. There are underground stormwater utilities, but that are in the setbacks, but that is allowed under our bylaw. Basically, that's really the only proposed development in this project. There are, so the DRB is reviewing the project because it is above the threshold of 1/4 or more acres of disturbance. So for runoff and erosion control standards, The project complies as proposed. It's greater than 1/4 acre disturbance, but less than 2 acres of disturbance. All land that will be disturbed is outside the watershed protection buffers and not on steep slopes. So this is considered a low-risk development. The applicant's proposing stormwater treatment improvements to bring the site into compliance under the state's 3-acre regulations. This includes the construction of 2 infiltrating sand filters. Both filters are proposed to be constructed on common land within the HOA. Conveyance and pretreatment will be provided via grass channels and deep sump catch basins. So the proposed project disturbs a total of 0.43 acres. The applicant has provided a runoff and erosion control, a erosion prevention and erosion control plan, which complies. There's no Class 2 wetlands in the vicinity of the project, and there's no anticipated impacts to Class 2 wetlands. Proposed project will not add any dwellings or make any changes to access, parking, or other on-site infrastructure, landscaping, outdoor lighting, signs, and street trees, and is not anticipated to impact conservation areas or flood hazard areas. Impact fees are not required for this project because no new dwellings are proposed and no commercial development is proposed. Thank you.
All right, Melinda, thank you. Okay, Gary, so, anything to, any comments? on
No, I
Staff
don't.
report?
No, I can answer any questions.
No, I mean, we've seen a number of these,
Okay,
from the different homeowners associations within Williston to become compliant with current standards. So this is something that we're familiar with. DRB members, any questions? Members of the audience, any questions? Comments? Okay, Gary, this is pretty straightforward. We're gonna close DP 25-08 at 7:27. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Okay, next up is DP 24-06, River's Edge Development. The applicant will come forward. Brian, good evening. State your name and address for the record, please.
Brian Courier, Larry Burke Civil Associates, 13 Corporate Drive, Essex, Vermont.
Welcome, staff goes next.
Thank you, Pete. This is a request for a discretionary permit for a 107-unit residential subdivision in conformance with SP 23-01, the Glazer-specific plan. This property is currently undeveloped. An element of the specific plan approval and this subdivision is the creation of 2 open space parcels totaling 48.42 acres with irrevocable offers to be donated to the town. This property is in the residential zoning district totaling 94.66 acres, where it was not subject to design review but is subject to Conservation Commission review. Staff recommendation tonight is to take testimony, close the hearing, and approve with findings, conclusions, and conditions. The highlights note specific conditions and findings where the DRB needs to review or edit where necessary before approval. What I'm reading in my staff report is slightly different from what the board has in their packets. Prior to mail out on April 3rd, the Public Works Department was requesting a continuance because sewer allocation had not been requested and many outstanding items and inconsistencies in the civil plan set did not address DPW comments. After discussion, Planning and Zoning and Public Works are in agreement that the project should be approved this evening and proceed to final plans, with the DRB retaining final plan review. And condition number 11 has been edited. This is a boilerplate condition. It's been edited to require that sewer allocation be obtained prior to final plans, in addition to its requirement before administrative permit. For project history, this went through pre-application review in November 20.
Emily, can you rewind, please? What number?
Condition number 11, and I can fast forward to that one because it's not in your paper packets.
No, I actually
Page
printed it.
19.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you. I just didn't, you were going faster than I could read. So,
Okay.
it's, I'm up to speed. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
All good, I got some water. So this went through pre-application review in November 2023. The specific plan was approved in January 2024. There was a boundary line adjustment with a budding property in October 2024. This discretionary hearing process started in January, was continued in March, and here we are this evening on April 8th. Public Works and the Fire Department commented on this application. The Public Works comment memos, including the memo by Aldrich and Elliott Engineers, is included in the conditions of approval. The Fire Department comments are excluded. And the E911 coordinator comments about addressing will be finalized at final plans in terms of street names and unit numbers. One comment was received at the time of mail-out, both January 9th, March 6th, and last week, April 3rd. No additional comment letters or emails have been submitted up to this evening. In terms of the pre-application recommendations, the applicant has responded to all of them. Some are not applicable. Some will be addressed at final plans with specific conditions. The residential zoning district, we have findings and conclusions for this item. So finding that the open space complies and that the focal point distance for the neighborhood units distances to park amenities complies. Enforcement and guarantees, there's specific conditions related to the development agreement, infrastructure and road offers and warranty deeds, as well as bylaws and covenants for the private association. Because this project and the specific plan requires land be donated to the town, there's a condition of approval by the town attorney that there might need to be a memorandum of understanding to clarify these different permitting thresholds and phases and when the land would be transferred to the town. There is a recommendation in there, or a condition in there about phasing, that the recreation path along Mountain View Road, including Old Stage Road and Glazer Court Crosswalk, and the path connecting those two neighborhood clusters, that they be completed in Phase 4 prior to the Phase 5 25 homes, so that those required public elements are not put off to the very end, but are phased with that cul-de-sac construction. Chapter 11, Affordable Homes and Growth Management. This is a finding for the DRB to double check. Based on the last hearing and the amendments that the applicant made to the project, the recommendation was that it does meet that 50-point minimum score. Originally, there was a multi-use court proposed in the middle of the multi-use path segment. Because of the habitat disturbance assessment, the Conservation Commission recommended that that amenity go away. And in lieu, the applicant is providing 2 park clusters with natural play elements, picnic tables, seating on either ends of those paths instead. Originally in the application, there was some mismatch between the footprints, building footprints, and the architectural renderings. There is a requirement that the Glazer specific plan has, that the front porches extend 4 feet in front of the garages, and that is now reflected in the civil plan set and the architectural elevations. With some rendering photos there. And the park path elements in your packets this evening tonight are some concept photos of what these features would look like. Chapter 13, access. So compliance is anticipated. There's a condition about no parking and that fire truck turning radii be shown on the plan sheets, ensuring that street parking doesn't preclude fire apparatus turning movements. This was discussed at the last meeting, but at final plans, the path and crosswalk must extend along Mountain View Road all the way to the Batdorf Glazer property line, where shown on this highlight. Traffic study complies as proposed. The applicant's transportation engineer responded to the list of questions about why all-way stop control is not recommended for the Mountain View Road and Old Stage Road intersection. However, a crosswalk is being provided, although there won't be a four-way stop at that intersection. And flashing beacons are proposed at the new crosswalk of Old Stage Road near Wildflower Circle to the new neighborhood. Off-street parking complies as proposed. Homes have off-street garages and driveways. On-site infrastructure, the circulation complies as proposed. The sidewalk wraps around the cul-de-sac to serve all homes with a sidewalk. Sidewalk and recreation paths, there's also a condition. During the review of the specific plan, there was discussion. Typically, the bylaw requires sidewalks along both sides of a new street and an existing street. There's two places where sidewalks are not shown. One is on the western side of Glazer Court along that Batdorf property line. That is acceptable because a multi-use path is shown on the other side, as well as in line with the habitat disturbance assessment for that north-south habitat corridor. The other area is along Old Stage Road. This, again, there's a multi-use path on the other side of Old Stage Road already existing, and due to wetlands, it would be challenging to construct a path. There's connectivity provided for all of the homes within the development, and then path connectivity along Mountain View, looping through the two neighborhoods. Utilities complies as proposed. They're shown underground. Municipal sewage, that they are anticipated to meet the Public Works comments at final plans. The sewer allocation request has been submitted and will be worked out prior to final plans. Similarly, for municipal water, there's been a lot of discussion with this about the water pressures, looping water lines. So those final DPW comments must be addressed at final plans as well. Maintenance, for the neighborhood parks and open space, we'll need to confirm at final plans that the private open areas, including Class 2 wetlands and growth management neighborhood amenities, will be the responsibility of the owners association, and that it's adequately explained in those documents. Snow storage, I believe that is shown on the plans, but just want to confirm that snow storage is identified. And solid waste is not applicable. The homes will be served individually rather than a consolidated dumpster area. Chapter 17, accessory and temporary uses. This relates to construction. So confirming the construction plan. At prior hearings, the DRB may recall discussing that gated access is required into the site, and equipment and materials should be fenced and contained, but we're not requiring a fence around the entire area disturbance. It's just those two key areas where controlling access and containing equipment and materials is recommended. Density complies as proposed. And I did not provide here a new density table based on the new bylaw, but the old bylaw, 225 units where 107 are being proposed. Landscaping compliance is anticipated at final plans. There's been a lot of back and forth on this one. Primarily the landscaping along the multi-use path between the two neighborhoods. So there's a recommendation now to mix some of our buffer types to provide more unstructured plantings within that wildlife habitat corridor, as shown in this image. Street trees, also compliance anticipated, that the trees meet the no more than 15% from any one species, and that they meet some of the species requirements. Conservation areas, compliance is anticipated at final plans. This was a place where we modified the condition based on last meeting's discussion with the Conservation Commission about that wildlife travel corridor and the multi-use path. Watershed health, compliance is also anticipated with conditions. They are showing the boulder spacing, the reduced boulder spacing, along the wetland buffer where it's closest to residential homes. I believe the last thing we're looking for is the plantings, or the bird posts along the wetland buffer where it is next to the hayfield. Outdoor lighting, compliance is anticipated. They are showing outdoor lighting for the parking lot. It's reasonable to expect outdoor lighting for the community building. And transportation and park and recreation impact fees are assessed on a per unit basis at administrative permit. What follows is condition number 9, or finding number 9 for the DRB to look at, conclusion number 3, and then all of the bolded text and the conditions are some of those specific things that will be addressed at final plans. Thank you.
Okay, Emily, thank you. Brian, do you have any comments on Emily's staff report?
Not specific to the staff report. When we were here last, we got continued primarily, in my opinion, was because Public Works had concern about water pressure in the area. They were kind enough, and we had well, it's history now, but we had a quick warm-up for a week in March, and we did do a hydrant flow test. A water CAD model was produced showing that we do meet the requirements, both pressure and flow, for the municipal system proposed here. So we believe we've answered that threshold.
Brian, just to follow up on that, what, you said we had a quick warm-up, does that?
In temperature,
So
more
it got
that it
temperature.
was snowing today, yeah.
Does it change the water pressure?
No, the water department doesn't like when you flow their hydrants when it's winter.
Got it,
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else to add?
I have some conditions to discuss, but,
Okay, let's
Ready
do
for
that
it?
now.
okay. Not much. Primarily, actually, it's just one. Number 5, I'm on page 18.
Yep.
Says the applicant shall enter into a development agreement with the town guaranteeing any required public or private improvements. The applicant shall post any required letters of credit or escrow amounts that guarantee the completion of these improvements in accordance with town standards and conditions. So we're fine with all of that. It's the last piece here. Conditions of approval prior to the approval of final plans. So generally, guarantees, letter credits are done as part of the administrative permit process and not prior to final plans. So if we could just get some clarification there. It's more of a permit trigger than anything else. So we don't have an issue with the guarantee. Obviously, that's standard practice for Williston. It's simply that the condition reads that should be provided prior to the approval of final plans. Where generally, my experience has been that's done at the administrative step, basically your building permit, after final plans have been approved.
Emily?
That's sometimes how it's done. I think I would recommend editing this, that we're working on the development agreement and have the draft language. There's a lot of particulars here with construction phasing, but it does make sense. You don't have those cost estimates for a development until you've finalized that first phase project. So I think in deliberative session, we can clarify that language that the development agreement and the drafts need to be ready to go, but we're probably not finalizing the numbers, and they're not pulling those letter of credits or escrows together until that administrative permit phase. So
Yeah, so.
splitting hairs a little
The-
bit, but.
Well, the development agreement's fine, no problem, it gets reviewed by the town attorney. It's, if we're gonna provide a letter of credit, we have to close on the property, we have to close on a loan, we can't do any of those things until final plans are approved.
Okay. Yeah, we acknowledge what you're saying, and in deliberative session, we'll come up with language that is a workaround on this.
Okay, and I did pull the Williston Development Bylaw 7.1 section, and it does explicitly say administrative permit as well, so.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
8C, I'm on page 19 here. My understanding is that the last part of this condition, so 8C is talking about the landscaping. As Emily said, that's been a discussion topic at the last 2 meetings. The last one was specifically about breaking up type 3 buffer and 4 along that cross-country path, but also the type 3 and street tree buffers that are approved on the northern boundary line where Glacier Court is. The last sentence there, it says, "The shrubbery and flowering bed shall continue along the western property line in the type 3 buffer area," which is fine, it's the last piece, "and west of Glacier Court to provide habitat mitigation per Williston Development Bylaw 27," so on. My understanding is, in the board's deliberative session, they were leaning more towards having small street trees along Glacier Court rather than the type 3 landscaping buffer that generally comes with flower beds and, grass plantings and shrubs and those sorts of things. So that's my understanding. Obviously, I'm not privy to those conversations, so if I'm wrong, let me know.
We might have talked about some of that landscaping stuff in the hearing as well, and I think what the DRB would be, if that line that I have highlighted, the west side of Glacier Court, were struck, it would be a standard street tree section along Glacier Court, and then that type 3 buffer where the street ends to the property line.
Exactly.
On that southern western side.
Yep. Yeah, we have a rec path there and a community garden area where it gets wider, and you got the type 3
Yeah.
buffer.
And on the street tree things, I think we have something in here about the spacing. So another item the DRB discussed was the scenic vistas, and I see the abutting neighbor, Scott Batdorf, looking to speak. The DRB does have flexibility for that typical 40 feet spacing to flex it a little bit for that abutting property. And there are different street tree sizes that are allowed within the street tree standards of our bylaw and public works specs, so they can right-size the species and the placement however they like.
And you've got that in there by saying at applicant's discretion,
Yes.
right? That covers it, right?
Yep, we're okay with that part.
Okay.
But how is the abutting property owner protected here for the view shed? So when I hear discretion, and I hear, I'm concerned that the abutter doesn't have a say in it.
So the condition reads, trees along the west side of Glacier Court, and I'm abbreviating here, may be spaced to maintain the scenic vista from the existing and proposed home site on the Batdorf property at the applicant's discretion. I think if the DRB wanted more of a rock-solid guarantee, they could strike at the applicant's discretion. And then what we would be looking for at final plans is showing the existing building footprint and that approved building envelope with the sight lines, and then the trees spaced accordingly.
Yeah, and I'd like to see may change to shall. And so that'll all be part of the final plan.
Okay.
And, I mean, I don't think it's a material change, but
No.
I think for Scott's protection, which we talked about at
Yeah.
a previous hearing, I think that's important to capture it and memorialize it in the condition of approval.
Yeah, standard is 30 feet on center. I mean, we could do 50, 60, whatever the board is comfortable with. We're more than happy to comply.
But if it's addressed at the final plans, which will come to the DRB, and there's, standard, engineering to demonstrate that view shed is not impacted, then that's the right way to do it. Are you tracking?
Yeah, no, I didn't have, my only concern with that condition was the type 3 buffering along.
No, I took it in a different direction.
Yeah.
I just think it's important. Scott, are you satisfied with that? You
Yeah,
wanna-
it sounds good. The only thing we're trying to do is preserve the view of Camel's Hump from the new house and the
Yep.
existing house.
Yep, understood. Yep. Okay.
Would it be clearer if we said exactly that and laid it out in that condition, that the applicant will work with the neighbor, Batdorf?
That's the
To
easiest.
preserve the view from their house of Camel's Hump. That way it's unambiguous.
Yep. We'll work on that in deliberative session. Yep, yep. Good suggestion. I think we know the intent. It's not gonna be a burden. But it's important.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, what else you got?
As you mentioned it, Pete, can we talk about final plans going back to the DRB? I haven't been involved in one of those before. Is that another public hearing, or is Pete just signing the plans that we submit, or how does that work?
Yep, so that's a more informal process than a public hearing. Typically, what we do is give the DRB a memo highlighting the changes that were made in the plan set.
Okay.
We usually get it on the next available agenda based on giving us, a couple days to a week to review plans. So
Okay.
it's not that 5 weeks out. We would be looking to the Public Works Department as well for some comment, and then it would be an other business item on that DRB agenda.
Okay, so it's not a warned public hearing, it's more or less, these are our conditions, this is how they were addressed, board, you agree? Yeah, okay.
Yep.
All right.
And then the DRB chair signs off at the conclusion of the meeting, assuming that there weren't any objections, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So it's.
Okay,
so
abbreviated.
It's more
Yeah.
streamlined. yeah.
Okay, understood, no problem then. Yep,
Okay. Anything else?
that was it.
Okay. DRB members, questions? Paul, good? Scott? Okay, members of the audience, are there any comments? If so, sir, come on up and to the mic and introduce state your name and address, please, for the record.
Yep. I'm Jim Heltz at 487 Wildflower Circle in Williston. The only question I had was about the traffic study. I think my understanding, it was done like late in the morning, like around 11 o'clock, as opposed to, let's say, between 7 or 8 in the morning or 4 to 6 in the late afternoon. And I was just curious why it wasn't done at those times when we have more traffic. It's when schools are coming at, schools starting, or people going to work or coming back from work, where there's going to be more of an impact, especially coming in and out of those two developments.
Brian, could you speak to the methodology used, please?
Yeah, so traffic counts are done exactly as the gentleman states. They're done in the peak AM hour, typically is between 6 and 8, and, around commuting hours. So then in the peak PM hour, it's generally from 4 to 6. So the traffic counts that were done as part of the traffic study were done during those timeframes.
Yeah, and why did you assume?
I think I was told that from the last meeting, I thought they were saying that it was done at more late in the morning at 11. I don't know why there was a misunderstanding then.
Was that, do you
that was-
recall ever making that statement, Brian, or
No.
perhaps there
Okay.
just was a misunderstanding? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But there's methodology that's standard in the you know, in these traffic studies and guidelines, and what Brian said is sounds consistent with those guidelines.
That makes sense to me, 16.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry?
The hand raised on the.
Oh. Okay, so Megan Cope, you appear to have your hand raised. Would you like to address the board?
Yes, thank you. I have been following this with interest, and I just had a couple comments. One is that this is just essentially equivalent to a typo, but several of the north arrows in the in the documents are not actually pointing north. And so I just thought I would register that, including the very first page of the, I think it's the civil set that I'm looking at. Yeah, the civil set. So I'm sure it would be nice to have that corrected. Then I guess the other comment I have is a much more substantive one. And that is really about some of the amenities that are being provided or in some ways not being provided. I was very curious to see what would be what would replace the original kind of play court that was envisioned in the earlier version. I wasn't particularly wedded to the play court, but I was curious what the replacement would be after the Conservation Commission's concerns about it. And I have to say the facilities that are shown now with boulders and balance beams are a nice start, but I feel like they're really insufficient. This is a development with 107 units. There could easily be, I don't know, potentially 80, 100 kids living in this neighborhood at some point when it's fully built out. And I think it's pretty disappointing to have such minimal accommodations or kind of fun things in the plan. I would love to see an expansion of the it doesn't have to be fancy equipment. I love that it's not plastic, it looks like, so that's great. But a climbing structure, some swings, that's not terribly pricey stuff, but it makes a huge impact for kids' enjoyment of a neighborhood space. So, and that's the entirety of my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the audience? Scott? If you would, just for the record, state your name and address, please.
Yeah, Scott Batdorf, 1876 Mountain View Road. I just wanted to speak in favor of the bike path, the multi-use path, being constructed from Mountain View down towards town as soon as possible. I know that was addressed as being built as part of the Glacier Court phase, but I just want to emphasize the sooner the better to get some of these kids from Ledgewood and my kids from home down to school and things and get them off of Mountain View Road, which is so dangerous. And as this project increases truck traffic and car traffic and confusion, I think that's even more important. So the sooner the better, the multi-use path is my comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Other comments from the members of the audience? Any raised hands, Hannah? Okay, DRB members, any further questions? Scott?
All set.
Okay, last call for members of the audience. Brian, any final words of wisdom?
All set, thanks.
Okay. It's 7:58. We're going to close DP 24 Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the DRB is now going to go into deliberative session. Okay, welcome back to the Williston Development Review Board. Today is April 8th, 2025. The time is 8:27. The DRB is out of deliberative session. For DP 24-12.1, that was opened and continued to May 13th, 2025. Is there a motion for DP 25-06?
Yes. As authorized by WDB 6.6.3, I, Lisa Braden Harder, move that the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and all the accompanying materials included in the recommendations of town staff, and the advisory boards required to comment on this application by the Williston Development Bylaw, and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of April 8th, 2025, accept the findings of fact and conclusions of the law of DP 25-6 and approve the discretionary permit subject to the conditions of approval above. We did have one modification to item 8. Prior to obtaining any administrative permits for this development proposal, the applicant shall provide documentation of adequate water supply and wastewater treatment.
Great, thanks, Lisa. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Dave Turner seconds. Any discussion? Yay or nay? Paul?
Yay.
Lisa?
Yay.
Scott?
Yay.
Dave?
Yay.
Chair's a yay. 5 in favor, none opposed. Motion carries. Is there a motion for DP 25-08?
Yes. Authorized by WDB 6.6.3, I, David Turner, move that the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and all accompanying materials, including the recommendations of the town staff and the advisory board required to comment on this application by the Williston Development Bylaw, and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of April 8th, 2025, accept the findings of fact and conclusions of law for DP 25-08 and approve the discretionary permit subject to the conditions of approvals above. The approval authorizes the applicant to file final plans, obtain approval of these plans from staff, and then seek administrative permit for the proposed development, which must proceed in strict conformance with the plans on which this approval is based.
That should be from the DRB, not staff. Final plans approval.
For Williston Woods?
Oh, excuse me, no, this is Glazer. Never mind, I had the Glazer one pulled up in my mind, sorry.
Okay. Okay, so read that last sentence just for clarification, please, Dave.
The approval authorizes the applicant to file final plans, obtain approval from these plans from the staff, and then seek administrative permit for proposed development, which must proceed in strict conformance with the plans on which this approval is based.
Great, thank you, Dave. Is there a second?
Second. Yep.
Paul seconds it. Any discussion?
Nope.
Yay or nay? Paul?
Yay.
Lisa?
Yay.
Scott?
Yay.
Dave?
Yay.
Chair's a yay. 5 in favor, none opposed. Motion carries. Is there a motion for DP 24-06?
Yes, as authorized by WDB 6.6.3, I, Scott Riley, move that the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and all accompanying materials, including the recommendations of the town staff and the advisory boards required to comment on this application by the Williston Development Bylaw, and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of January 14th, March 11th, and April 8th of 2025, accept the findings of fact and conclusions of law for DP 24-06, and approve the discretionary permit subject to the conditions of the approval above. This approval authorizes the applicant to file final plans, obtain approval of these plans from the DRB, and then seek an administrative permit for the proposed development, which must proceed in strict conformance with the plans on which this approval is based. There are a couple of changes that we have. Under findings of fact 9, this application achieves a 50-point growth management score in the in all of the categories with, under D 11.7.4, provide neighborhood space is calculated at 5 of 10 points, all others remaining the same as published in the staff report. Under 8, C, it is revised to read, Emily, can you pull that one up? C is revised to read, trees along the west side of the Glazer Court and in the western 23-foot Type 3 buffer shall be spaced to maintain the scenic vista to Camel's Hump from the existing and proposed home site on the Batdorf property. The shrubbery and flowering beds shall continue along the western property line in the Type 3 buffer area to provide habitat mitigation per WDB 27.5.10.3. And that is it.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Is there a second?
Second.
Lisa seconds it. Any discussion? Yay or nay? Paul?
Yay.
Lisa?
Yay.
Scott?
Yay.
Dave?
Yay.
Chair's a yay. 5 in favor, none opposed. Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of March 20th?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Dave seconds it. Any discussion? Yay or nay? Paul?
Yay.
Lisa?
Wasn't here.
Lisa abstains. Scott?
Yay.
Dave?
Yay.
Chair is a yay. 4 in favor, none opposed. Lisa abstained. The meeting minutes are approved. Okay. Staff, Emily, you've got a couple of items to go over with us. The floor is yours.
Yep, so the item extension is DP 2317. This is the subdivision for 3JT LLC Mungin, the infamous six-story apartment building. That both you guys need to approve the final plans extension for the subdivision. Concurrently with this timeline is their administrative certificate of conformity for the building. That also needs to obtain approval by that date in order for that building to remain valid. Even if the subdivision goes through and the building doesn't, they can still re-permit that building. It would just have to be a foot less. But
Story
this is
less.
A
One
story.
story, 1 foot, yeah. 1 story less, which is approximately 13 feet or so. So, this is just the extension for the subdivision. That building is an administrative process.
Have you seen any movement on this? Yeah, you're not going to.
Okay, so Emily, this is just providing the DRB with a status on something that was done by staff administratively.
So you guys need to approve the 6-month extension. The first 6 months, staff can approve. The second 6 months is a DRB approval.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so, I would entertain a motion, to extend the approval of DP 23-17.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Bob's got a question.
Question. Now, if we elect not to approve this, they come back and they start over?
They have the right. This is perfunctory. I mean, it's.
Right.
They have the right, Paul.
Oh, so this is,
So we're simply acknowledging that they came in and got the second extension. That's all this is.
oh, okay, just wanna make sure.
Yep.
But even though we've given them the extension, the rules have changed, so they've now lost the story.
If they don't follow the second extension.
Oh,
So this allows them to keep their approval that we gave them for another 6 months, at the end of which, if they haven't built it, they will have to come back and they will have to be 1 story less.
Okay.
So this extends the approval of the rules of engagement at the time of the initial improvement.
That's what I wanted to confirm. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions?
Nope.
By August, so the subdivision, what you guys are approving is, that can, go to final plans. For that administrative permit for the building, if they don't file the permit, all of the fees, public and private guarantees, then that building permit is expired. They could come back and renew, it would need to be 1 story less. And even if the subdivision goes through and that building approval expires, they don't lose the subdivision.
Yep.
They would just renew a building permit.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor, it's been seconded. Any other any other further comments?
Ready to vote.
Okay, yea or nay, Paul?
Yay.
Lisa?
Yay.
Scott?
Yay.
Dave?
Yay.
Chair's a yea, 5 in favor, none opposed. Motion carries.
For DP 23-17, request for a deadline extension.
Right. Yep. Okay.
Last 2 other business items, one I'm not sure is on the agenda, but we are planning on a bylaw amendments training / update. The village zoning district is totally revised. The standards there are much different. And then we highlighted some of them in the Batdorf application, but we plan on giving you a more thorough, not necessarily line by line, but probably chapter by chapter overview. So you're aware of what you'll be seeing in the future in coming staff reports. You'll never see a stormwater application again, which it saves everybody time. And then the fun one is Town Fair on Green Up Day is Saturday, May 3rd. We won't have a meeting before that because there's no meeting on April 22nd, so we wanted to keep you guys appraised. Helping with green up routes is always helpful. Stop on by, there'll be free ice cream, even though it's a Saturday morning. So it should be a pretty fun event. Info on the town website.
Great.
Great.
Oh, yeah, and attendance for the summer. I think we got 5 people. Someone didn't RSVP with their name.
I haven't sent it in yet.
Okay, then it was
It's probably me.
You 3 put your names in. It probably was Pete then, because it was no July and August dates were
Oh,
marked.
no, I'm
That
for all
was,
of them.
that was me. Oh, there was a field to populate your name?
Yeah, all good.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
That's okay. We use the process of elimination here.
He who needs no
End of June.
introduction.
Okay, so it looks like coverage?
Yep, it looks like we're good. I think there's one meeting at the end of at the end of August. That looks rough, but hopefully by then we have new members on the board.
Yeah.
We just kind of wanted to get a general head
Yep.
count if there are any glaring ones.
I'll send mine in. I think I'm around for pretty much all of it.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.